So this is actually an updated version of my best decks video I made last year, and this is going to be for the influx of brand new players we have gotten over the past week. This is going to be teaching you guys how to make the absolute best deck you can make in the game, and kind of like the format that you should use when it comes to trying to create some of these decks. And I will also be showcasing some of my own decks that I have made throughout the years that, from my personal experience, have come out on top. Now, before I begin explaining how to make the decks, I should say that these decks should only be used for general gameplay. So this is if you are not following a specific strategy and you're just joining like a public server, for example. This would be a good time to use that deck. If you are doing, let's say, like some sort of very hard challenge mode map that is like, let's say like Blast Deck Barrage or something like that, and you need a very specific loadout because you're going to be like 2 or 3 manning it, then absolutely use the right deck for these. Now, I'm not saying the decks I'll be showing you won't work, but obviously, if there are decks that work better than the ones I show you today, then obviously use those. Basically, I'm just saying, not every deck I show you in this video is going to be like S tier for every single map in the game. For the most part, they're going to be really good overall for just general gameplay. If I had to give my own opinion on how useful my decks would be, I would say pretty much up to Alien Attack, you can use whatever the hell deck you want and still come out on top. When you get to maps like Honeycomb and pretty much anywhere past that, you'll have to start using very specific decks that are made for this map. Like, for example, Honeycomb is a very, very large map with 3 entrances, and it requires a bunch of very high range units. So obviously, you know, you're not going to bring a tower in like Chef when he can easily get countered by any kind of stun, slowing effect, or just the fact that if it were a faster unit, when in reality you could just put down a very long-range tower like Voka, and it would just get the job done better. That's just a prime example on what to look out for whenever you start getting to those higher-end maps. But without further ado, let's begin dissecting how to make a really, really good deck. Before we get on with the rest of the video, did you know that 90% of you are not subscribed to this channel? If you like any of the content you see here, you guys should subscribe. I mean, it's free, you can change your mind later, and even better, you're already coming back for the uploads anyway, so you might as well just hit that button anyway. But hey, it's ultimately up to you guys. And without further ado, here's the rest of the video. Enjoy. The first thing you're going to have to do is every single deck for general gameplay all starts with a Lemonade Cat. This is, if you are not following a specific strategy, then just bring Lemonade Cat, just to be safe. Lemonade Cat is one of the best troops in the entire game, and is pretty much the sole reason public matches are bearable with randoms. Unless your team is very coordinated, just bring Lemonade Cat into any match you go into from now on. Hell, even I do. I have been doing that for the past 3 years, and nothing's gonna stop me from doing it. So now that you already have basically took over 1 slot, we're now gonna focus on the first 2 slots, which are actually going to be your damage towers. So damage towers are going to be the thing that pretty much carry you for the entire game and are going to be the main contributors to defeating the boss of the map you're playing on. Now, let's say I was going to be doing, let's say like a medium mode map, for example, okay? So it goes up to wave 35. If I were doing something like an easy map, I would want cheaper units, because it's not going to be reasonable to bring somebody like Yasuke, upgrade all 12 of them, and then bring somebody like Hot Dog Frank and upgrade all 11 of them by wave 25 on easy mode. It just is not plausible. So let's stick to the medium map format. So for my own personal experience, I'm going to go ahead and bring Yasuke, one of my favorite towers in the entire game. This is a melee troop that basically attacks incredibly fast, high damage, pretty good range overall, and it has an ability for 3,000 mana that you can apply to all 12 Yasukes, so basically 3,000 mana times 12, 36,000, and you can apply it to all Yasukes. What the ability does is you are going to get more damage, more range, a lower cooldown, so you'll begin attacking faster, and a lower rate, which it doesn't show on here, basically meaning that you'll be attacking faster. On top of that, this ability applies a status effect known as Dragon Flame, which is just a burn effect that does 8 damage every 0.2 seconds, and it does 15 damage if you have a Spectre fully maxed out. Now, the last thing that this ability does is, for 20 seconds, your Yasuke cannot get stunned by enemies or the boss. So if a boss has any kind of stun that could ruin melee towers from doing any meaningful damage, Dragon Flame pretty much counters it entirely. Next, since we already have one melee unit, we are not going to pick another melee unit for general gameplay. Instead, we want to pick a very reliable ranged unit, because here's a reminder, you're not going to have this ability up at all times, so something may stun your Yasukes and try to get through. So let's pick a very reliable range tower right now at the moment, literally one of the best range towers in the whole game, Scientist, and let's put them in our deck. Now, the main reason we're using Scientist, high damage, very high range, and is overall just very reliable. Now that we've picked our 2 damage towers, we are now going to pick 2 support towers. What support towers are, basically, they are going to consist of any tower that is going to heavily contribute to you winning the game, but they don't really necessarily do a whole lot of damage. They're just there to support your towers. The people on this list include someone like Bite, Dumpster Child, Lemonade Cat, Maitake, which, by the way, yes, it's pronounced Maitake, and I have proof. Alright, so right here, here's the pronunciation, okay? Here's the official pronunciation from Google, okay?
Maitake.
You heard that, right? Yeah, Maitake.
Maitake.
You see what I mean? I told you I was right, okay? I told y'all I was right. Anyway, after that dilemma, the other units are Spectre, Discount Dog, and Balloon Pal. Now, there is actually another thing we call for supports, and that's just going to be your summoners, okay? Your summoners are going to include Slime King, Cart Kid, Jester, Haze, Beatrice, Oddport, Stella, or El Goblino. Now, if we were going to do 2 supports, we would only need to bring 1 summoner. But for the sake of this video, we are not going to bring a summoner. If you feel like you need to bring a summoner, go ahead. But for the sake of this video, we'll pretend that Yasuke is going to be the person that carries our early game, because Yasuke is more than capable of defending most early games. So let's go ahead and choose a support tower. Now, from the options that were listed earlier, I'm actually going to pick Balloon Pal. Now, the main reason behind this, it gives all of your towers plus 50% range, and that's including your melee units, and that's including your scientist. This will effectively increase their total potential damage by 50% because, well, they're getting up to 50% more range for basically free. And lastly, we need 1 last support tower. Now, I want you guys just to guess from the entire roster here in this area who the last tower will be. If you guess Spectre, you're correct, because this is literally the most broken tower in the entire game, effectively doubling the damage of all your units and only increasing the cost of them by 10%. It is nothing. It is the best unit in the game, and the reason why you should always bring Spectre into games just in case, because not everybody is going to bring a Spectre. So this is an example of a really well balanced out deck. Now, while this deck will not be used for easy difficulty, it is going to thrive on medium and hard mode difficulty, where you will have a lot more time to get mana and properly set up your troops. So now that I've taught you how to make a deck and what goes into it, I'm going to be showcasing a couple of decks that I've made that have turned out to be incredibly useful. Starting with one of my all-time favorite decks, probably my second favorite deck in the entire game, Quinn, Branch, Discount Dog, Lemonade Cat again, and Spectre again. And before we talk about this deck, if you notice a theme with all my decks, they all have Spectre, they all have Lemonade Cat, and they all have Discount Dog or Balloon Pal. You will notice that all the decks are following the two support trends, that being either their Discount Dogs, Balloon Pals, and then their Spectres, and the Lemonade Cat trend, where every single deck right here all have Lemonade Cat. Now, the main reason I love this deck a lot is because this deck actually works for easy mode, medium mode, and hard mode maps. And the main reason why this works incredibly well for easy mode is because of Discount Dog being able to decrease the cost of your units by 40%. With that cost reduction, you can essentially have a setup that you would normally not be able to obtain unless you were playing on medium difficulty or higher. You can have that full setup on easy mode with a maxed out Spectre. Now, as I said earlier, this deck is not only used for easy mode, it can also be used on medium difficulty and hard difficulty. The main reason why is because of Discount Dog's ability. You can pay a lot of mana to increase your hero limit by 1, which means all of your towers outside of your supports will all have an increased limit by 1. This includes Lemonade Cat, by the way, just letting you all know. So getting an extra Quinn and an extra Branch will significantly actually increase your damage by a lot. And on hard mode, you should theoretically be able to get at least 2 Discount Dog abilities triggered. If not, you can definitely get 3 or more. It is more than possible as long as people donate mana to you. You might be asking, how come I'm not using Balloon Pal and I'm instead using Discount Dog? And the main reason is because I'm letting Quinn's very, very high range and single target damage taking care of everything, while also the fact that while Branch is incredibly weaker without Balloon Pal but is still incredibly good, all you have to do is just use Quinn's ability, which will slow every enemy in a 23 range for 10 seconds. It'll slow them all down to half speed, which basically your total damage will essentially go through the roof when you activate this ability. So this is definitely one of my favorite decks, and I heavily recommend this deck. Heavily. Now, the next deck I'm going to be showing you guys is the most popular deck in the entire game, and that is Scientist, Branch, Balloon Pal, Cat, and Spec. The reason why this deck is so popular, again, is because you can use this deck on any difficulty in the game. You can use it on easy mode, medium mode, and hard mode, and it will still be an incredibly powerful deck. With Branch finally having access to Balloon Pal, and Scientist getting even more range from Balloon Pal, and both of them getting even more damage from Spec, and having Lemonade Cat to farm, and how Branch is literally one of the best towers in the game, if not the best range tower in the whole game, because of a little something called Splash Area, which is just area of effect damage, which is basically just AoE damage within a 4 range of wherever he's attacking. With both of them combined, they are easily, right now, the best range duo in the entire game, and it's not even close. Now, you could argue, for medium difficulty and higher, you could replace Scientist for Quinn. That is perfectly okay, but for general gameplay, Scientist honestly is a little bit better than Quinn, but that does not mean Quinn's terrible. The next deck I'm showing you is my all-time favorite deck. This is Yasuke Triple Support. Now, you will immediately realize that this deck has only 1 attacker and 3 supports and Lemonade Cat. And the reason behind this is because Yasuke puts out so much damage on their own with Balloon Pal and Spectre and their ability that basically is just gonna skyrocket their damage. And the fact that Discount Dog can even add to that damage by allowing you to pay mana to buy the hero limit. This setup works so well. Bosses get melted by Yasuke. They get melted by this deck. It's mostly because of the high rate of fire Yasuke has, and when you have all 12 of them maxed out by like wave 20 with a maxed out Balloon Pound and a maxed out Spectre, almost nothing will get by unless it is an incredibly fast enemy. And even if the enemy did get by, you're still going to do a major chunk of damage to it. And this is just a solo scenario. If you were on duo or trio, this deck is still S tier. It's still the best deck in the entire game. I love this deck. It is so underrated because no one I have seen uses this deck. And the people who do use this deck do not use it correctly. Your early game is going to be Yasuke. When you finish leveling up your cats, you're going to put down the discount dog, upgrade into level 5, and then start putting down a couple of Yasukes just to handle your mid game a little bit better. So that way your early game Yasuke in the very back of the map isn't going to get overrun. After you get about like 2 to 3 Yasukes fully maxed out, get your Balloon Pound spec fully maxed out, and then just slowly start upgrading all 12 Yasukes. When the boss comes, hit the hero data menu, activate all 12 abilities when the boss is close, activate your Spectre ability, so that way it increases the attack rate of all the heroes in the range, and you pretty much have basically an immediately dead boss if it's anything like medium and under. So yeah, that's my rant on why this is the best deck in the entire game. Now, we'll continue on with a very unique deck that is kind of hard to play. The idea behind this deck is that this should not be used anywhere outside of very low player count hard mode matches. The reason being is because you only want to use this on pretty much solo. You only really want to use the solo. You can kind of get away with doing this on duo or trio by just selling some of the franks to keep putting down wizards, your Balloon Pound, and your Spectre. But ultimately, this deck, it strives in solo content. And I'll tell you why. Hot Dog Frank is the best tower when it comes to killing anything outside of the boss. He can kill literally anything that is not the boss. And I'll tell you why. Area damage. This is not the same thing as splash damage. Splash area, or splash damage as I call it, is basically just going to be anything that is within 4 range of whatever any kind of splash area unit is attacking. Anything within 4 range will also take damage, but it will take a reduced amount of damage depending on how far away they are. Hot Dog Frank completely ignores that, and basically, you can just spam level 4 Hot Dog Franks, and area damage will basically do the full amount of damage within anything that is even remotely is in his range. All you have to do is just spam level 4 Hot Dog Franks on the field, and your mid game is taken care of. It is done. And then when late game hits, which is like wave 30 plus, you can just start maxing them out so that way they guarantees nothing's getting by. This is the absolute best unit in the game that does not involve bosses. It is such an underrated unit, and I wish more people would use this character. I wish more people would use them. Now, the main reason I'm using Wizard in this deck is because Wizard has a unique thing where technically, this is the most expensive range tower in the game, but it does the most damage theoretically. When you get Wizard maxed out, you can pay mana to increase your magic damage, which is just normal damage. Every time you pay for this ability, it will increase his damage by 10, and you can buy it up to 4 times. Now, theoretically, in a normal match, you'll only be able to buy up to 3 magic damage boost. But even if you can only buy 3, you are still doing insane damage because with Balloon Pal not only basically making Frank just borderline broken and pretty much making Wizard's range just that much better, you also have Spectre doubling their damage again. And basically, these two in a solo match, practically unstoppable on hard mode. Now, does it solo every hard mode map? Not quite, but you want to know what this can solo? One map that this is incredibly good at soloing is Chaos Kingdom hard mode. Incredibly good. This is probably the absolute, like, the second best deck in the entire game when it comes to soloing Chaos Kingdom. Now, the first one is a deck that is a lot harder to use. I won't be bringing that up in this video because it is basically just, instead of wizard, it's Yasuke, but it's a lot harder to use. So for the time being, we're just going to be introducing these two. These two on hard mode basically go so well together, and there's a lot of hard mode maps you can complete solo with just this setup, because 13, 11, that's 24, Balloon Pal is going to be 25, and Spectre is going to be 26. You are the exact amount for a 1-player limit. So this deck works perfectly on hard mode. Now, the last deck I want to be talking about is more of a very fun deck. This deck involves basically the same concept as the Yasuke triple support deck, except it involves what is arguably the best damage unit in the entire game if you're willing to put up with the amount of mana you'll be having to spend on this one unit. What Stella does is, when she is a summoner, but not in the way you would think. Stella, whenever an enemy enters her range, will spawn in a turret next to her, and these turrets will have a set amount of health, and you could pay mana to fully heal the turrets. And as the game goes on, you'll find yourself, if you place Stella, if you place all three Stellas decently far apart from each other, and I'm not talking like one in the front of the map, one in the back, you ideally just want all of them towards the front. Having them not only close enough together, but also giving them enough room away from each other to keep summoning their turrets, you'll end up finding yourself on average roughly about 40 to 50 turrets all attacking at once. And you will understand that if you are a solo player, Stella is a godsend of a tower. It is, to this day, my favorite tower in the entire game, because all you have to do is just let her keep summoning her turrets and then just keep basically making sure they just stay healed the entire time. Now, she is terrible early game. Okay, I will admit, she is very bad early game. So, that's where Oddport comes in. This is a summoner that not only does damage by running into enemies, but also attacks them while he goes through the path. And as you go through the levels, Oddport becomes noticeably better, specifically when you get to level 3, 4, and 5. These levels allow Oddport, after they lose all their health, to resurrect themselves. For level 3, you can resurrect yourself once. When you get to level 4, Oddport can resurrect themselves once. And when you get Oddport to level 5, they can resurrect themselves 2 times, effectively basically having 1050 HP in one summon, which, on top of the damage it's doing, pretty much makes this the best summoner in the game by far. And this is mostly because Oddport's early game is so consistent. You do not understand how good this tower is until you try it for yourself and do early game with this tower. It is so broken and is incredibly good, and I wish people would try this tower out. If you have the chance to go get Oddport, please do and test him out, because he is genuinely the all-time greatest summoner, and you will never want to use another summoner ever again for any kind of public match. I genuinely mean that. And on top of that, we once again have Balloon Pal and Spectre, which, by the way, Oddport is the only summoner in the entire game that actually gets affected by Balloon Pal and Spectre. So not only is he getting a range increase, he's doing double damage as well. Unfortunately, he does not get double health. That is not how that works. But it's a good reason that does not work. He would actually just be straight up broken. And also, your Balloon Pals and your Spectre are going to be buffing all your turrets that Stella has, and she's basically going to be, if there's a way I had to describe Stella, it's basically Yasuke triple support, but it's more ranged than anything. It's just a ranged version of the deck I showed you earlier of Yasuke triple support. It's just a ranged version of that. Now, the big thing about this deck, I do not recommend you use this deck when there are like 6 people in your lobby, because Stella needs space to place her turrets down. If you are playing a match and you are only able to get up to about 20 turrets in total, you've wasted a slot with Stella. If you are playing a match, you can get about 40, 50 plus minimum. It is well worth a slot. Now, is this the best deck in the game? Absolutely not, but it is still a god tier solo deck. God tier. But overall, my personal all-time favorite decks, It's Yasuke triple support and Quinn branch with D-Dog, Lemonade Cat, and Spec. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. I hope this helped in some way, and I hope to actually see some of the creations you guys can come up with. And if you guys have any questions about this video at all, please feel free to comment. I'll try to get to them as fast as I can, because when I upload this video, I'm going to be up all night. So don't worry. I'll try to respond to comments whenever I can. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.